Chapter 12. At Night. They drive down the dark suburban streets towards Emily's house, saying nothing the entire ride over. What more could they say? As the car approaches her driveway, David slows down, looking out the window. With a surprised look on his face, Emily leans over to him and sees a bronze Nissan Xterra parked in her driveway, right next to her mother's car. "Is that your dad's car?" she asked. David parks the car. "What's he doing here?" Need my coffee. They enter the house cautiously, leaving the front door wide open as they enter. David's father and Emily's mother sit on the couch, drinking wine and laughing about something not heard. Her hand was on his lap at the time, but the instant their children entered the room, she quickly moved it away, thinking that they wouldn't notice. But David did notice. Father turns his head and smiles. "Dad?" David asked. "What are you doing here?" And he says, I just came over to help fix a few things around the house." David stares at them with confusion and a hint of disappointment. Emily looks the same. "Is something wrong, son? You look shaken." Mother chimes in after a long pause. "Your father tells me that you've been in an accident recently. An incident with fainting?" David stares at them with a clenched jaw, unblinking, his hand squeezed into a fist. He says nothing. Everyone is silent, but the parents don't seem to notice the awkward tension in the room. "You better go home and get some sleep, Junior. I'll be over there soon." Emily pats David on the shoulder. I'll see you tomorrow." David stops glaring at father. He looks at Emily, closes his eyes, and nods. "Yeah, we can grab lunch if you want." Emily walks up the stairs slowly. David watches as she disappears into the hallway, unspeaking. The parents stare at him, smiling, waiting for him to say something. He looks down at them with spite. "Hey, Dad?" "Yes, son?" "Before I go, do you remember that kid I used to be friends with?" "Kid? What kid?" "His name was Trent. You remember?" Father scratches his neck with a frown on his face. He shrugs his shoulders and looks over to Mother. Clueless expressions from both of them. "Nope, doesn't ring a bell. Sorry." "What about the mayor?" David asks, with his voice filled with accusation. "Do you remember him?" Father chuckles. "What kind of question is that? Of course I know the mayor. Everyone does. He throws parties all the time." David laughs insincerely and leaves without saying another word. Later that night, in his own home, David sits alone in his living room with a tall glass of water, staring out of the large window with no expression on his face. The curtains are drawn wide open, but he can see nothing on the other side. The neighborhood is completely dark, like a city during blackout. From across the street, you look inside. You can see David clearly. You can see into every room, the layout of the hallways, the best ways to enter, and the easiest way to escape. You can see his bookshelves, what's playing on the TV, and where he'll be sleeping tonight. Every window is wide open, and the doors are unlocked, and all of the lights are on. Hiding in darkness, you watch him like a predator. He is visible, vulnerable, exposed, and helpless, unable to see the threats lurking outside his house, unable to see you. David finishes the water. You see the house disappear one room at a time as David gradually turns out the lights and returns to his bedroom. The room is like that of a child's, a colorful fan, the planets of our solar system hanging from the ceiling. And this includes Pluto, glowing in the dark. They're glow-in-the-dark planets hanging from the ceiling. It includes Pluto. This is 2005. Pluto is still a planet in 2005. There is an Xbox in the corner hooked up to a CRT TV. It hasn't changed a day since his 7th birthday. Of course, you know this already. He crawls into bed, now wearing pajamas, and turns out the lamp. David lays in bed with his eyes closed, but not sleeping. The sound of the suburban nighttime train echoes softly across the neighborhood. He tries to think of nothing, but the visions come unwillingly, flashes of light beneath his closed lids. He can still see the theater. He remembers the concrete maze and the fear he felt, and how it felt to let go of Emily's hand, thinking that it would be the last time he'd ever feel her flesh gripping his. He saw Trent's face staring back at him, with pupils larger than his eyes, and felt the knife sliding into his chest once again, scraping against the bone. He opens his eyes, crawling out of bed, vowing to never sleep again. David pulls up a wooden chair and sits at the window from his dark second-story bedroom. He watches the neighborhood at night, seeing how lonely the streets are, scanning the homes, looking into their windows without permission, feeling safe in the cover of darkness, feeling like no one could see him. He wonders what's out there, who is out there, behind the walls and under the many roofs, and what their faces look like, and what kind of lives they've lived. He wonders if any of them do as he does. Who else is out there sitting in their bedroom window, spying on the empty streets? Has anyone ever watched David the way he watches them? In a house across the street, a light flicks on. David shifts his attention towards it, glaring through the window and into the well-lit room. A blonde woman steps into her bedroom. She is alone, invisible to the entire neighborhood, completely unaware that David is watching her from hundreds of feet away. She's walking up and down her room, looking for something unseen, reaching down at something at the floor, but never seeming to find it. She is pale, almost too pale, and taller than most women. Upon further analysis, David can see the dark strands of hair mixed in with the blonde. Most importantly, she's completely gorgeous. David leans in to get a closer look. The woman stops. She can feel something watching. She walks towards the window. David crouches down quickly, ducking under his window. For a few seconds, he lays on the carpeted floor, hoping that she didn't see. He slowly pulls himself up and looks out the window once again. He sees her, hundreds of feet away, on the other end of the street, staring out of the window. Her face is as bright as day in the midst of darkness, the most visible object in the entire neighborhood. She stares directly at David, knowing that he is watching. She can see his face. She knows his name and what he has done, and she's known this entire time. David's soul leaves his body. Now imagine this. You're kneeling on the carpeted floor, looking across the street at the woman staring back at you. Your nerves are trembling. You want to collapse to the floor. And the way she's looking at you is primal. Her face doesn't even look real. It looks like it's made out of wax. And her face begins to melt under the bright lights. Suddenly she breaks eye contact, glancing over at something outside her house. You follow her gaze. There's something in the road, and you gasp. A glowing figure outside your home. When you look back at the woman, she's gone, and the bedroom has gone black. You look back down and see the glowing figure walking towards your house. It's going for the front door. The front door that you forgot to lock. You remember how exposed you were earlier that night, with every light in your home being on and every window wide open. Your exact location is known to the entire world. And this glowing figure is coming for you. Inside your home, inside your walls, through your living room, down the hall, and into your bedroom. You begin to hyperventilate, hearing the front door swing open effortlessly. The sound echoes throughout the entire house. In a panic, you lock the bedroom door, but someone's walking up the stairs. It sounds like the whole house is shaking. You cover your ears, crying. There's a light coming from underneath the bedroom door. It's walking down the hallway. You try to pick yourself up, but your legs feel non-existent. You have to crawl towards the window. You're making too much noise. He can hear you through the door. The door begins to shake violently, and the knob is about to break. The light from underneath grows in brightness. Your ears are ringing. They're about to explode from the pressure. Understand that you're about to die in the worst way imaginable. In about 5 seconds, that door is going to open. And the instant it does, time will freeze and your heart will stop. You will feel the worst pain a human being could possibly ever feel, and it will last an eternity. You'll be sitting on the floor of your childhood bedroom, looking up at your murderer, having no idea who he is or why he's doing this, and none of it will matter. This image, you can never look away from it. Your eyes will be pried open for trillions of years, unable to blink, unable to cry. Your eyes will completely dry out, burning and itching, but still seeing with perfect vision. You manage to get the window open. You sit on the edge, looking down at the massive drop. You can't even see the bottom. Imagine you jump out of the window, plunging into darkness, never feeling the bottom hit you. Imagine falling forever. The bedroom door finally opens, and you jump, screaming the whole way down. For a fraction of a second, you catch a glimpse of the figure, standing only a few feet away. The light was blinding, so bright you could feel its warmth radiating across the room, your skin sizzling and burning, the radiation probably giving you cancer. You crash into the bushes below, into the total darkness. Your eyes have yet to adjust, but you can still see the light, the lingering bright blur inside of your retina. You scramble to get out of the bushes, screaming and begging for help. You limp across yards, slamming into objects and tripping onto the wet grass. You're covered in mud now. You can feel the dirt working its way into your bleeding cuts. And you feel your way up against the neighbor's house and find a front porch. You slam your fist on their door, begging for someone to come outside or maybe call 911. But no one will help you. No one will ever help you. Even standing in the middle of the cul-de-sac and screaming at the top of your lungs amounts to nothing. You're still out in the open. Your location is known. Your sound is heard by all. You run down the street, looking over your shoulder. Each time, all you can see is the empty streets. But imagine you turn around, looking over your shoulder, and there the figure stands, inches away. It grabs both sides of your head, twisting it around 180 degrees, killing you instantly. But this doesn't happen, so you run faster now. David reaches Emily's house, banging on the front door and yelling for her to open up. And a minute later, the door opens. Emily stands in the door, rubbing her eyes and yawning. David? He barges inside, pulling Emily in with him. He shuts the door and locks it. David, what are you doing here? She looks down at his shirt. David, what happened? You're bleeding. He grabs her by the shoulders. It was in my house, Emily. What? That thing from the theater. And she gazes into him, fear building in her eyes. In my own home. And his fingers are digging into her shoulders. He's like, it was in my house. And mother and father walk down the stairs. For a split second, David could see his dad was still buttoning his shirt. What's going on down here? David, son, what are you doing here? I told you you'll get some sleep. David snaps. What are you doing here? You said you'd be home by now. What were you doing? Certainly not fucking Emily's mom. Father glances at mother. She looks ashamed, not even looking at her own daughter. I was just about to leave. Come on, David, say goodnight to Emily. We're gonna head back home. And he stares at his father with hatred in his eyes. The night begins to fade away, and David does not sleep. Hold on, wait. Okay. Chapter 13. Pills! This chapter title is Pills. David sits in an oversized cushion chair, low to the ground with his legs held close together, keeping very still and very quiet. His gaze does not shift away from his feet. His face appears paralyzed, with droopy eyes and an emotionless expression. Across from him is an older, professional-looking woman, sitting at a tall wooden desk. She crosses her legs and looks at him with silent analysis. She's judging him, pulling from the medical notes stored inside her brain, trying to find the right diagnosis. The therapist taps her finger on the desk and smiles. Mr. White, David, was it? Tell me, why do you think you're sitting here in my office today? He speaks in a murmur. My father sent me. She nods in a meaningless way. He is concerned for you. David says nothing. And your mother as well? She's not my mother. That's Emily's mother you're referring to. Are you sure? She asked. David finally looks up from his feet. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. That's Emily's mom. It's not my mom. And she pulls out some files from under her desk. Why don't you tell me what's been going on, David? Your father mentioned that you fell out of a window a few months ago. He looks down at his feet. I was attacked. Attacked? Attacked by who? I don't know. She looks down at the files, reading them with her thin framed glasses. She shakes her head dismissively. There weren't any signs of a break-in. And how would you know that? I know many things, David, and I prefer if you didn't interrupt me with useless questions. I'm the one who asks questions. I'm trying to help you, you see? She leans in slightly. You've been scaring people around town. You and your girl, Emily. Now I understand you have this imaginary friend. What was his name? Trenton? Trent, he said sternly. His name was Trent. It's not normal for a boy your age to have imaginary friends. He was real, David snaps. She laughs silently to herself, trying to hide behind a manila folder, but David knows what she's doing. She apologizes for laughing and interlocks her fingers. Why is it that no one else can seem to remember him? Is this some sort of game you're playing, an urban legend you're attempting to spread around? David remains silent. She frowns. David, you need to answer my question. Maybe we should talk about something else, David says nervously. I'm sorry, but there's nothing else to talk about. Now answer the question. Why can't anyone else remember? He starts to look around the room, fidgeting. Occasionally, he'll look over his shoulder, afraid that someone might be listening in. They do remember. The therapist stares at him for several seconds. They do? He sits hunched over, making himself as small as possible, glancing up at her several times, but always looking back down at the floor, and he speaks in a hushed whisper. I saw it. On their faces. They know I'm telling the truth. They knew him. Knew him like their only son. You think that they're lying? David closes his eyes and nods excessively. He's saying yes. He's like, okay. What are you implying here, David? He doesn't want to answer. She sighs, annoyed, licking her teeth. I won't allow you to sit there in silence. And he speaks slowly, saying, there's something going on behind the scenes. I knew Trent my entire life, and now he's gone. They made him disappear, erased him from existence. But I remember. He looks her in the eyes. I won't let them forget. She gives him a curious look. Who are we even talking about here? David looks back down. She laughs. So let me get this straight. You think that everyone you've ever known, and everyone who's ever known this person you call Trent, are all involved in some sort of grand conspiracy to cover up his existence? She laughs again, even harder. And David sinks into his chair and allows his mind to go numb. I can't shake this feeling, he mumbles to himself, that everything around me is so fragile. I had a vision that we live inside the dream of God, a God who never knew us, and at any moment he could wake up, and everything we've known and everything that's ever existed would come crashing down. It feels like it's already begun. He whispers to himself, total annihilation. She rubs her chin. That's really interesting, David. Let me ask you a different question. Do you have any history of schizophrenia in your family? David laughs sadly, covering his face with his hands, his mumbled laughter turning to tearless cries, and in his madness he calls her a bitch under his breath. She doesn't seem to notice or care. Suddenly something begins to ring. The therapist reaches into a drawer. Whoops. She reaches into a drawer and pulls out a cell phone. Like this. She puts it to her ear. Yes? Okay, I'll tell him. David looks at her, confused and worried. It's for you, she says. For me? Your friend Emily is going to meet you at the Sunrise Family Restaurant later this evening. She is. Yes. The therapist hands him a bottle of pills. I'm writing you a prescription. You'll need to take these food and water. David holds the pills in his hand, shaking them lightly, hearing the sound they make. Maybe you should Maybe you should give Emily a few, she thinks out loud. Maybe you should both take some at the same time. How many should we take? David asked. She rubs her chin. At least 5 each, just to be sure. David nods his head. What do these do again? She answers, saying, they're problem solvers. David looks down at the label. It reads, prescription for David White. Problem solvers, 800 milligram tablet. Take 5 orally, once. Well, the therapist says, you should probably get going. You don't want to be late. Right, he says. When's our next session? Next session, she asked. At least 27 years. David shoots her a confused look. Is this bitch fucking with me? Okay, he says, clearly annoyed. Bye. Good night, David. Chapter 14. Moonfall Stranger Cafe. Get it? Because it's the opposite of a Sunrise Family Restaurant. Moonfall Stranger Cafe is chapter 14 of Pseudo-Chesterton. David sits alone at the booth, drinking a cup of black coffee and looking up at the CRT TV mounted on the ceiling. Game 4 of the World Series. Bottom of the 8th, 2 outs, the White Sox lead by 3 runs. In his pocket, he holds the bottle of pills. He shakes them, hearing the sound they make. He thinks of taking them earlier than he's supposed to, but ultimately decides to follow the therapist's orders, taking 5 alongside Emily. He keeps looking over at the clock. It's 8 p.m. Where's Emily? David thinks to himself. She missed the first pitch. She was supposed to be here hours ago. He looks around the diner, seeing all the people around him, realizing that he's been there longer than anyone else. They come and go, new people funneling in, the stale ones vanishing over time. Even the waitresses are different, being replaced by new ones hours ago. Soon, he imagines the cycle will complete itself once again, and everyone he sees will be gone, replaced by someone else, and the only constant being himself. What's taking so long? He thinks. In the corner of his eye, David sees someone standing outside the restaurant, a man dressed in a beige trench coat, looking like a noir detective. He's even wearing a fedora and smoking a cigar. He's pacing up and down the parking lot, walking between cars, writing down license plate numbers, digging through bushes, searching for something unseen. David wonders what the hell he's doing. He chuckles at the strange man and looks back at the screen. Top of the 9th. Tied ball game. Damn! White Sox blew their lead? That's crazy. They don't usually do that. When's the last time the White Sox blew a lead? That's crazy. They don't usually do that. They better hold the line and make it to overtime. If they lose this game, it's all over. They already lost 3 games. David looks back at the window. He flinches, his arm jolting upwards, spilling hot coffee all over the table. The strange man is standing there in the middle of the empty parking lot, tall and perfectly still, standing there underneath a bright street lamp, his hat casting a dark shadow across his face. He's looking right at David. David looks away quickly, trying to act like he wasn't just staring at him, but a second later he looks again. The man is now walking towards the entrance, looking right in his direction. He walks with determination and purpose. David looks down into his coffee, seeing his own worried reflection. Who the fuck is this guy? What does he want? David tries to think of a way he could get out of there without being too obvious. Maybe he can dine and dash, or maybe hide in the women's bathroom, or disguise himself as a fry cook. But it's too late. The detective enters the diner. He looks the place up and down, analyzing everyone that's there, scoping out the place, checking the windows, the hallways, the doors. He makes his way towards David, smoking the cigar indoors, and sits down across from him at the booth. David pretends not to notice. He points his burning cigar at the TV. White Sox blew their lead, huh? Figures. For the record, this is my favorite character. David looks up from his coffee, staring at the man, appalled. The look on his face says, "What the actual fuck are you doing, man? Get away from my booth." The detective still looks up at the TV. "I remember this ball game. As a matter of fact, I was there." David snorts. "What do you mean? It's a live game." "Is that so?" he says with smugness in his voice. "Take a look at the front row there, Chief. Sitting right above home plate. Who do you see there?" David squints his eyes, looking at the low-resolution screen right above Paul Konerko's head. He sees a row of people, those fortunate enough to afford home plate seats at the World Series. And sitting in the very center of the row is the man in the beige trench coat, wearing a fedora and smoking a cigar. It's the detective, the very same person sitting across from him, on the screen. He stands up, staring right into the camera, and waving at David to the screen. "What the fuck?" David says out loud. "Don't act so surprised there, kid. It's a weird world we're living in. Crazier shit than that's been happening all around us, and most people don't even care to notice." I know, I'm a detective. He puffs a cigar. I'm snooping around town on a case, thought maybe you could help me out. David laughs. Well, I'd love to help you out, man, but I'm kind of waiting for someone right now. I mean, I doubt I'd be very much help anyways. You sure about that? I think you'd be interested in this one. It's right up your alley. David goes to drink his coffee, but pauses momentarily, looking at the detective with a side eye. How would you know anything about me? We just met. The detective rolls the ash off his cigar and looks up at David with the same smug glance. He puffs his cigar a few more times for dramatic effect. You ever hear the story of the kid who never existed? The kid who never existed? David repeats. You don't mean... That's right, buddy. I'm looking for your old pal Trent. But I've been struck out on every lead I had. David grabs his arm. What do you know? You gotta tell me. He retracts his hand and looks around the diner with caution. Keep your voice down, kid. It's not safe here. How so? The detective looks over to him, overly serious. His mannerisms soaked in paranoia. They have eyes everywhere. Everywhere. I think it's best we leave. Leave? But what about Emily? She's gonna be here any minute. I wouldn't count on that, Chief. We can talk about this in the car. The detective gets up and motions for David to follow. He's hesitant to leave, but dying for answers. The strange man makes his way out of the diner, weaving in and out of crowds, between tables, and strolling past the Lion's Mints and the gumball machines. David realizes that he has no choice but to follow him. This is the only path forward. As he walks out of the restaurant, he glances up at the CRTV one last time. The World Series is over, and to his horror, the White Sox have lost once again, swept by the Houston Astros in 4 games. The curse of the Black Sox will never be broken. In fact, it's about to get a lot worse for the White Sox, for the city of Chicago, for everyone and everything, all at once. Chapter 15, Booze Cruise. David walks across the nighttime parking lot, feeling a crisp autumn breeze. It's totally dead. Not a single car in the lot except for a bright yellow H2 Hummer. The detective walks a few steps ahead of David with the keys in his hand. He unlocks it. The lights flash and the car beeps. David hops into the back seat. He sees that the interior is extremely high quality. This is probably one of the greatest cars ever manufactured. The finest leather seats, the largest cup holders, the most bumpin' sound stereo ever produced. There's even a TV screen installed into the ceiling. It's playing the funniest movie ever made, Madagascar, year 2005. The detective starts the engine, shifting it into gear, and tearing up out of there as fast as possible. The tires screech across the blacktop. A trail of smoke is left in his path. As David's head flies backwards, his neck almost snapping from the whiplash, he buckles his seatbelt in a panic. David tries looking out of the windows to see where they're headed, but all the windows are tinted. Even the windshield is totally blacked out, and it feels like he's sitting in the back of a limo. Where are we going? David asks. The detective turns around. To the heart of the storm, kiddo. Believe me, you're gonna see some serious shit. Some real fucked up shit. You hear? You better be wearing your lucky jersey, because we're gonna need all the luck in the world to turn the tides of this series around. I don't understand. The detective looks back at the road. You were set up, kid. That diner back there was a death sentence for you and your lady friend. Luckily, I was able to intercept her at the last second. You mean Emily? Where is she? Don't worry, she's safe. But careful though, she's gonna show up when you least expect it. The detective reaches into his glove box and pulls out 2 cans of old-style lager. He cracks one open and hands David the other. David waves it off. The detective shrugs and begins to drink. This town's seriously fucked, kiddo, but I'm sure you already realize that. He turns around to stare at David with intensity, still drinking by the way, and definitely not looking at the road. I'll give it to you straight. We're way out of our league. And these jokers, let's just say they play by their own rulebook. The batters are their own umpire, and they're calling nothing but balls. He relights the cigar, drinking simultaneously, somehow managing to steer the car at the same time. I'm the pitcher, you're the catcher. Look, I know that sounds a little gay, but just hear me out. We gotta strike these bozos out, kid. I'm talking knuckleballs, screwballs, 100-mile-per-hour fastballs right in the strike zone, a fucking no-hitter, a total shutout. David stutters. Shouldn't you be watching the road? Why would I need to look if I already know the destination? Maybe I better drive, David asked. Your time to steer will come soon enough. For now, just sit there and listen. Here, drink this beer. It'll make you understand better. The detective forces the can into David's hand. He accepts it, hesitant, but refusing to drink. The beer isn't even cold, and it's well past its expiration date of September 2001. The car swerves silently. The car swerves suddenly, causing David to slam his head against the window. He screams in a panic. The detective grabs onto the wheel, flipping it all the way around. It feels like they're drifting, moments away from flipping over, rolling into a ditch. The entire car is engulfed in flames. They both burn to death, screaming as their flesh melts off the bone, unable to crawl out of the wreckage, trapped inside the smoldering steel coffin. Thankfully, this didn't happen. Due to the detective's expert-level driving skills, he was able to stabilize the car and drift back into his lane. He drives pretty good. He must have played a lot of Grand Theft Auto. He probably completed all the driving school missions in San Andreas, and I bet you he 100% completed it, collecting all the horseshoes and everything. Probably even completed wrong side of the tracks in one attempt on his first playthrough. You remember that one mission where Big Smoke makes CJ follow the train? Anyways, back to the novel. The detective grunts and punches the steering wheel. Ooh! Makes me just sick thinking about it. These fuckers fuck with the wrong guy, let me tell you. Kidnapping kids, making them disappear, and we're just supposed to pretend we didn't notice. We're just supposed to drink their Kool-Aid. Not on my watch, Busta. We're gonna give these wise guys a piece of my mind, teach them a lesson they ain't never gonna forget. You still haven't told me where we're headed, David says. The car comes to a screeching stop. David's head flies forward, smacking against the driver's seat. His neck almost snaps for a second time. Doesn't matter. We're already here. Get out! Chapter 16. Remember Menards? Do you remember Menards? David jumps out of the Hummer, seeing that they are standing inside of a massive 4-car garage, looking more like a warehouse in its sheer size and spaciousness. The floor is made out of concrete. The ceiling is very tall. Everything vaguely smells of gasoline and dust. The detective paces around with his hands on his hips. Tell you what there, Skeeter. We're the unwelcome visitors in this ball game. He struggles to relight his stale cigar. We're the goddamn it, light you motherfucker! But he lights it. We're down 4 runs and only a grand slam can put us back in the standings. He begins to walk up and down the garage, twitching and scratching himself like a crackhead. Help me look for clues, kid. Help me look for clues, kid. What kind of clues? Any kind! Just look around and tell me what's what. David walks around, seeing the decorations on the walls. The flag of the United States, all the Chicago Bears memorabilia, the large collection of beer bottles and soda cans, a weight bench in the corner, a punching bag, and a rack of dumbbells to the side. Nothing worth mentioning. And over by the bright red toolbox, adorned with stickers of pinup girls, David finds an ashtray with a couple burnt-out cigarettes. Upon further inspection, he realizes these are not ordinary cigarettes. Hey, detective guy, I think I found something. The detective runs over like a lunatic, sticking his face 1 inch from the ashtray. Jesus Christ, is that what I think it is? He says, picking up the joint. Now this is pot, reefer, Mary Jane, the devil's lettuce. Great find, bud. I think we're really getting somewhere. David searches through the nearby toy box. It's made out of wood, painted dark blue. The letter T is carved onto the top. He digs through the plush animals and electronic gadgets. A giant pile of Hot Wheels, the monster trucks. At the bottom he finds a small black cylinder, a container of some gel. It's hair gel. The detective was already standing behind David looking at the product. Trent's hair gel? He says. Nah, could be. But then again, could be anyone's hair gel. We need something big. Something that's gonna blow this case wide open. You hear? I don't see how any of these clues are supposed to help us, David talks back. Big mistake. Talking back to the detective. So the detective gets right in his face. "You're my MVP right now, my designated hitter. I need you on your A game. This ain't no Little League anymore. This is the World Series." "Okay," David says. He walks around the garage some more, quickly finding himself bored. "This detective work sucks," he says to himself. "It's not going anywhere." David wishes he could leave, but realizes he's in for the long haul, and there's no going back, no way to crawl out of this rabbit hole. He'll just have to see it through to the end. He walks up to the punching bag that hangs from the ceiling and punches it as hard as he can. His hand begins to hurt. Standing there, holding his fist in pain, he realizes that something isn't right with this bag. He unzips it to find something most peculiar. He sticks his hand inside. "What do you got there?" the detective asks. David pulls out a small notebook. He opens it, reading from the passages. "This handwriting," he says. "I recognize this. Did I write this?" He reads a random page, written in black ink, jotted sloppily. It describes the scene of a detective novel. Two characters, a young man and a private detective investigating a garage. Together, they search an area, looking for clues, talking about the mystery at hand. The young man walks over to a punching bag and finds a notebook inside. He opens the book and begins to read. He discovers that the book has been written in his own handwriting and describes the very scene he's living. He begins to wonder how this is even possible. David attempts to read ahead in the story. He catches a brief glimpse of the future. A single passage stands out. "Are you paying attention?" the book asks. The detective swipes the book out of his hand, throwing it across the entire length of a garage like a baseball, so it's an overhand pitch. He points his long, dirty index fingers in David's face. David can smell the cigar stench coming off his hand. He gags. "That evidence is useless, David. There is nothing worth reading in that book." David sticks the entire length of his arm. The detective sticks the entire length of his arm into the punching bag, digging around for God knows what and grunting. "Come on," he yells. "There's gotta be something we can use in here." Suddenly he stops. Hold it! Do you see what's inside there? Look, there's something blue inside that punching bag." He pulls out a blue fabric. It's a shirt of some kind. No, it's a jersey. He stretches it out for David to see. He looks down in total shock. It's a Chicago Cubs jersey. Signed by Michael Barrett, no less. That fuckhead that punched A.J. Przinsky in the head in 2006. Michael Barrett. "What I tell you, David," the detective speaks somberly, "this really is enemy-occupied territory. This really is enemy-occupied territory." He marches over to a small wooden door. David follows close behind. "That settles it then. We have no choice but to go inside." David grabs him. "Who are we dealing with exactly? Who is this? Who are we going up against?" "These people," the detective says. "They're not who they say they are. You may recognize their faces, their voices, but they're not real people. You have to dehumanize them. David, dehumanize everyone that you see." He continues. "Don't believe a word they say. Whatever you do, don't let them see your eyes. Here, put these on." He gives him a pair of dark sunglasses and then puts on his own pair. "They speak of truth, but in them there is none. They're hypocrites, all of them, spouting off contradictions left and right. It's a fucking worldwide gaslighting operation, David, and everyone you know is an unwilling participant. Not even you are immune to propaganda. Don't forget that." "I won't," David responds. "Good. Now, I don't have my garage key, so hopefully my Jules card does the trick." He pulls out his wallet, retrieving a thin rewards card from the supermarket chain known as Jewel Osco, and attempts to pick the lock. But nothing he does works. "Damn!" he yells. "Give me your wallet. What do you got in there?" "Same as you, just a couple rewards cards," David says. "For what stores?" Got Meijer, GameStop. That's weird. I didn't know I had a Menards card. Must be my dad's or something." The detective turns to face David. "Did you just say Menards?" David blinks. Yeah. "Do you remember Menards? Their jingle? The way it went?" Sure. Well, let's just say we're about to save a lot more than big money with this thing. The fate of the entire universe hangs in the balance. David hands him a card with trembling hands. He snatches it away and begins to pick the lock. He hears the sound of the deadbolt sliding. The detective turns the knob. Remember what I told you, David. Never show them your eyes. Trust no one. They enter through the wooden door, through a path of total darkness. And that's enough for today.